Ross Cullum will catch Carly Spencer in Windermere trying to rescue Josslyn Jacks. Let us start with a mother who has done what mothers in Port Charles always seem to do when their children are in danger. She went in alone. She went in fast, and she did not wait for the perfect plan. She has been desperate. Her daughter has been held captive on that island estate, surrounded by armed men and impossible odds, and every single day that captivity continued was another day she felt like she was losing her mind a little more. So, when the opportunity presented itself, she did not hesitate. She snuck onto that property with one goal, and one goal only: get her daughter out whatever it takes. She made it inside. She got as far as the living room, moving carefully, trying to find her way to wherever her daughter was being held, telling herself just a little further, just a little closer. And then a man working for the operation running that estate stepped into her path and stopped her cold. And then she came face to face with him, the man behind all of it. The one whose corruption and cruelty have been the driving force behind so much of the suffering this story has put its characters through. He looked at her with an expression that should chill anyone watching. Not surprise, not anger, but something worse. Satisfaction. The look of a man who has been waiting for exactly this moment, who is delighted that she walked herself directly into his hands without anyone forcing her to. She isn't over her head. There is no softening that reality. She made a choice driven entirely by a mother's love and a mother's desperation, and that choice has now put her in a position of real, serious danger, standing in a house controlled by a man who has shown repeatedly that he does not hesitate to hurt people who get in his way. And here is what makes this moment even more frightening than it would otherwise be. The person who has rescued her from situations like this before, time and time again, is not available. He is locked away on the other side of the world, in a prison run by the very organization that this villain represents. There is no familiar hero waiting in the wings this time. She is genuinely, completely on her own. Except, perhaps, she is not entirely alone. There is someone else moving through this story right now whose path may intersect with hers at exactly the right moment. A man who made an extraordinary, almost unbelievable decision to surrender himself voluntarily to the very organization hunting him, who has been playing a long game that nobody else fully understands yet, who has connections and resources, and a level of strategic thinking that could make him the unlikely hero this situation needs. If anyone is positioned to step in and turn this around, it might be him. And then there is her daughter, the young woman who has spent this captivity not simply waiting to be rescued, but training, preparing, looking for her own opportunity. The spoilers suggest a violent, bloody confrontation is coming on that island, one that could end with the villain's downfall once and for all. There is a real possibility that her daughter finds a way out of her own confinement and arrives just in time to turn the tables, becoming the rescuer instead of the one needing rescue. If that happens, the gratitude in that moment is going to be overwhelming. A mother who spent her daughter's whole life protecting her, finally being protected by her in return, in the most dangerous moment either of them has ever faced. That is the kind of full-circle storytelling that makes this show worth every minute we spend watching it. His days are numbered. We can all feel it building. But numbered does not mean over, and there are still some genuinely terrifying moments standing between where we are right now and wherever the story is heading. Cassius pulls gun on Joe after Sidwell exposes fake Nathan. Now let us walk through one of the most tense, fast-moving episodes this show has given us in a long time, because everything that has been quietly building for months came crashing together in a single explosive sequence. Let us start across the ocean, because the truth was already starting to surface there before any of this happened in Port Charles. A woman who has spent months fighting to be believed broke into an old chateau during one of her escape attempts and found something extraordinary: a letter. A letter describing a baby boy, a secret handover, a child given away by his own mother to a dangerous man who raised him as his own. She put the pieces together with the precision of someone who has spent a lifetime reading between lines that other people miss. The twin was real, and he had taken over his brother's entire life. She shared this with a trusted friend, showing her the letter, watching her friend's careful, skeptical expression as she tried to process something so enormous. There was doubt there, understandably. But there was also a flicker of recognition, A strange detail that had never quite fit, a relationship that felt out of character, small inconsistencies that suddenly made a different kind of sense when viewed through this new lens. Her friend agreed it was worth investigating, especially given the love a small boy has for the man he believes is his father. Word started to spread carefully. A warning was left for someone who needed to hear it most, though technology and bad timing kept that warning from landing in time. The danger was already in motion before anyone could stop it. Meanwhile, back in Port Charles, the man at the center of this entire scheme was issued an order that put him in an impossible position. The villain running this operation had learned that law enforcement was closing in on a property connected to his other problem, a furious, vengeful criminal who had become too much of a liability to leave alive. The order was direct and unambiguous. Go there. Make sure he does not walk out. The incentive offered was enormous. A share of profits from the dangerous project at the center of everything, enough wealth to disappear and start over completely. But the cost of refusing was just as enormous in the opposite direction. The lives of two women being held captive, women who had become family to him in ways he never expected. At the police department, pieces were moving into position. A stakeout was being arranged at the very property in question, evidence and instinct converging on the same location. And in a moment that must have taken real nerve, the man living under a false identity inserted himself directly into that stakeout, sitting in the passenger seat of the very officer whose investigation could expose him completely. Inside the house, the criminal who had been on the run finally appeared, delivered there by an ally who could not understand why his client refused to simply disappear and survive. But survival was never the point for this man. He wanted justice for someone he had lost, and he wanted it specifically from the man who had betrayed him. When the officer and his unlikely partner burst into that house with weapons drawn, everything accelerated. And the cornered criminal, seeing an opportunity to weaponize chaos in his own defense, did something devastating. He called the imposter by his real name, out loud, in front of the officer who had no idea who he had actually been working alongside. For one suspended moment, the man holding a false identity hesitated. You could feel, even through the screen, the entire weight of his situation crashing down on him at once. Every lie he had been maintaining, every relationship built on a foundation that was never real, every person who trusted him and had no idea what they were trusting. And then he made his choice. He turned his weapon on the officer who had trusted him enough to bring him along. He demanded the officer surrender his own gun. Whatever loyalty, whatever conscience, whatever hesitation had been building inside him, in that single moment, faced with complete exposure, he chose self-preservation. And an officer who believed he was working alongside an ally just found himself staring down the barrel of a gun held by the person he trusted most in that room. Elsewhere in the city, two people who cared deeply about a young man were having a very different conversation about how much that young man should know about the dangerous, dirty man pulling so many strings in Port Charles. One wanted information kept quiet, worried about what the boy might do if he knew the full truth. What that adult did not realize is that the boy already knew everything. He had already taken decisive action to protect someone he cares about, and he was not interested in being managed or protected from a truth he had already faced head-on. And in another quiet, important moment, a warning was delivered. A woman in law enforcement made it clear that her tolerance for vigilante justice had limits, that she could not simply look away if a powerful man in this city decided to take matters into his own hands and eliminate a threat permanently. The response she received was measured, understanding, almost respectful of the line she was drawing, but it was also clear that the line existed for a reason, because the temptation to cross it has never been stronger. This was an episode where every single thread that has been quietly building all season collided at once. And the fallout from it is going to ripple through every storyline we have been following. Liesl fakes the prototype. Josslyn joins a dangerous plan to destroy Cullum. And now let us close with something that feels, against all odds, almost hopeful, because two extraordinarily intelligent women, both held captive against their will, both forced to work on something neither of them wants any part of, have found each other and started building a plan. One of them has spent years watching a dangerous obsession destroy people she loves. She remembers a man who poured his entire being into creating a weapon powered by something most scientists would call impossible, watching that obsession consume him until his death, and now finding herself forced to finish what he started under threat to everyone she holds dear. She finally understands, in a way she could not before, exactly what drove someone she once knew to the edge of her own sanity under similar pressure. The other is younger, trained in ways that most people in Port Charles do not fully understand, and brings a different kind of resourcefulness to this partnership. She's been thinking about escape since the moment she arrived, and she has found, in this older woman forced to work alongside her, someone whose brilliance might be exactly what their situation needs. They talk honestly about the danger they are in, about the weapon itself, about the man holding them, about what it might take to get free. The older woman is direct about something that has been weighing on her, the constant surveillance, someone always watching her work, making her nervous in a way that compromises everything. And nervous people, she knows from hard experience, make mistakes. The younger woman suggests something simple and clever: tell him directly. Make the case that being watched is making the work worse, not better. There is also the matter of family. The older woman has people she loves outside these walls: a niece, a great-niece, children, a grandson, and the fear of what happens to them if this captor decides to retaliate has kept her compliant in ways she hates. But she is reassured that someone inside this operation is quietly keeping watch over them. Someone who, despite everything, despite the role he has been forced to play, has not abandoned the family he found. And so a plan begins to take shape, piece by careful piece. First, a small act of sabotage, nothing dangerous, nothing that could be traced directly back to deliberate intent, but something that triggers an alarm and demonstrates a point. If it works, if it buys even a little bit of privacy and a little bit of trust, then the real plan can begin. The real plan is audacious in its simplicity. Fake the completion. Show enough progress, enough technical complexity, enough convincing data to make it look like the prototype is nearly finished, without ever actually finishing it. Claim that the remaining work requires painstaking, delicate precision that cannot be rushed. Buy time. Buy trust. And when a moment comes that this captor believes he is close enough to claim victory, use the resulting distraction and chaos to escape. It is a dangerous game. If the deception is discovered before they are ready to run, the consequences could be severe for both of them and for anyone connected to them. But desperate situations require bold solutions, and these two women, each brilliant in her own field, each fighting for people they love outside these walls, have decided that the risk is worth taking. They brought a third person into the plan, the man whose loyalty has been the great unknown of this entire story, the one playing his own dangerous game between two ruthless men. He agreed to be part of it. He committed to making sure that when the moment for distraction and escape finally arrives, the family connected to all of them, a woman who has shown him unexpected grace, her children, her grandchildren, the small boy who loves him without reservation, will be kept safe through whatever chaos follows. 3 people, bound together by blood and circumstance and a shared desire to bring down the man controlling all of their lives, are quietly building something that could change everything. They just have to wait for the right moment. And in Port Charles, the right moment has a way of arriving exactly when you least expect it.